This is the Federalism chapter, chapters 3 and 4. Discussion number 5, what states can and cannot do. This discussion is going to be about the different governments, whether it be a national government or state government, and what generally they are not allowed to do. In the Constitution, it is denied to the federal government, denied powers, that they are not allowed to threaten a state with their existence. They cannot say that Pennsylvania, if you do not follow through on the Patriot Act, we will give all of your land to New York. They can't do that. They cannot declare a state bankrupt. They can't force a state into bankruptcy by taxing the state itself. Also, no taxes on imports. Another example would be what's written in the First Amendment. They're not allowed denying the freedoms of religion, speech, assembly, and things of that nature. Now, states themselves have specific powers that only they get to exercise. These are referred to as reserved powers. For example, you don't go to the national government in order to get a marriage license. You go to the state government. Now, one thing I want to make sure everyone's clear about, and we're probably going to hit this a little bit later, is that remember that county governments or township governments are all considered state level when we're referring to the national constitution. Also, the idea of creating public schools, that is a state power, not a federal power. Now, there are things, again, like I just said, local governments are a subdivision of the state, of the national government. Now, there are powers that the state has that the federal government also has, but then there make sure we remember that there are powers that only the national government gets. Now, concurrent powers, for example, you get taxed by the state of Pennsylvania. You also get taxed by the United States. Uh, Both you can commit a crime against Pennsylvania law and you can commit a crime against federal law. Uh, Also, if there is a need for building of a new road, or bridge, or some other community needed resource or provision, that they can take your land, they have to pay for it, and make it for public use. Again, exclusive powers are ones that we want to make sure that we notice are given exclusively to the national government and not to the state governments. One best example I can give you for this is the idea of writing a treaty. If Mexico wanted to write a treaty about what things would be allowed to come over the border and what things would not be allowed to come over the border, it's a lot easier for Mexico and the United States if only the national government comes up with this list instead of Mexico trying to negotiate with California, New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas, and Illinois. Why Illinois? Well, who knows? But again, you need to make sure that you're aware of that treaties and there's other exclusive powers that's only for the national government. Now, in Article 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution, it says that the Constitution is the highest authority and that all governments must adhere to the constitutional principles. It's not that the state can turn around and say that the Constitution's dumb, we're not going to listen to it. That's what the Supremacy Clause means, which means that U.S. law takes precedence over state law. Federal law wins at all times. Now, if we wanted to kind of line them up as far as what is the most powerful laws of the country and so on and so forth down, we can look at slide number 22 where it says that the U.S. Constitution is top dog. No matter what, everything has to adhere to the Constitution. And then a congressional law or a treaty that's been ratified by the Senate comes directly underneath that. After federal law, then comes a state constitution, and then the state legislatures can write their laws, and then you've got the county, township, borough, hamlet, village, whatever you want to say, as a list of people that actually can create rules, usually zoning rules and that type of thing. And so it's required that all state constitutions adhere to federal law. It's required that all county statutes listen and follow state law, state constitution, laws of Congress, and the U.S. Constitution. And so that's where make sure that we know where everything lines up. This concludes discussion number 5, what the states can and cannot do. Again, this is part of the Federalism Unit, chapters 3 and 4.